Hi everybody. We are going to be starting our new unit, which is all about integers, rational numbers, and the coordinate plane. And our first lesson today, so this is Unit 4, Lesson 1, is all about representing integers. What we do when we represent integers is we actually plot them on number lines, and we are able to compare values very easily using number lines. So we're going to take a look here. You should be seeing my screen, and you should see our Explore activity. So how can positive and negative values be represented? So if we take a look here, we see a thermometer. Now, obviously, it's missing some values, so it's really hard to determine what exactly those values are. But when we look at a thermometer, we can usually see numbers. Okay? If we know that 0 is down here, right, it now gives us a value that we can associate it with. We can then determine where these other values would fit on that number line, basically, because that's what a thermometer is. Every whole number, right, would have a spot on our thermometer. So if we were to enter all of the correct numbers, it would go something like that, and we should be close. All right. So you would label it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way up, just like so. Now, when we think about winter, right, we think about a lot of below 0 temperatures or below freezing. When we're talking about Fahrenheit, anything below 32 is freezing. Okay. So can a temperature be colder than 0? Yes. And how we know that is because we have negative numbers. So anything below 0 would be a negative number. So anything above 0 in this place, right? So right above 0 would be a 1. Right below 0 would be a negative 1. And so on and so forth through this thermometer. You'll notice that negative 5, although 5 is the largest value we have in this set of numbers, negative 5 would be the lowest value because we're talking about going away from 0. It's the furthest away from 0, but in the opposite direction. So when we look at a thermometer, we can see then positives and negatives. Okay? So the larger a number looks in negative, the lower it actually is a way to think about it. All right, so I'm going to come on back to my camera here, and we're going to go through the lesson. So we do have a few vocabulary words that we will be focusing on for this lesson. The biggest one is integer. Integer is what you're going to hear a lot of. An integer is any number, basically. That's it. Any number. Okay. So I'm going to flip my camera around and you will be able to follow along in your book with me. All right. There we go. You should see my book now. And there we have it. So, like I said, an integer is any number from the set, right, where ... means continues indefinitely. So we can literally have any number on here. A negative integer is an integer less than 0 and is written with a negative sign. So these would all be negative integers. A positive integer is just the opposite of that. They're all over here. Okay? We don't have a sign before that, but we know that it would be a positive. 0, right, is a special case. It's neither negative nor positive, but it still is an integer in our data set. All right, so you should be following along on page 194. We're going to jump to our example 1. So here we have a football team has a 10-yard loss in one play. Well, if we're thinking about loss, would that be a positive or a negative? Well, in this case, loss, right, when we hear that, it has a negative connotation. So we would say this is a negative 10. So I'm going to write negative 10. Okay. That would be the integer we would use to represent a 10-yard loss. Now, part B says to also explain the meaning of 0 in this situation. So what we would say is, in a football play, the integer 0 represents 0 yards gained or lost, which means basically the ball didn't move, okay? So 0 would mean they didn't gain any yards and they didn't lose any yards. So that's how we would explain 0. So let's take a look at our checkup here on page 195. The elevation of Death Valley National Park is the lowest point in North America at 282 feet below sea level. So obviously we have feet below. Below means a negative, right? So if we're going to write this as an integer, we would put a negative 282. 0 in this case means at sea level. Okay, because we're talking below sea level, so 0 would be right at sea level. It's not above, it's not below, it's right there. All right, so let's talk about graphing integers on a number line. You can have number lines two different ways, right? To graph an integer on a number line, we place a dot on the number line at its location. Positive numbers are graphed to the right of 0 on a horizontal number line or above 0 on a vertical number line. So see, if we had a positive 2, it would be here. Positive 2, it would be here in relation to 0. Negative numbers are graphed to the left of 0 on a horizontal number line or below 0 on a vertical number line. So if we were graphing a negative 3, right, it's to the left of 0, or negative 3 would be below 0. Okay. We write a set of integers using braces, right? So we have little brackets that are kind of holding it together, saying this set belongs together. We need to somehow notate that it belongs together, so we use those little braces. All right, so let's take a look at example 2. We're going to graph integers on a number line here. To graph this set of integers, remember, all we do is take the number, right? Negative 4. Okay, I'm going to put a dot at negative 4. 2, I'm going to put a dot at 2, and negative 1, a dot at negative 1. Same thing here, right? Negative 3, 1, and 0, a dot at negative 3, a dot at 1, and a dot at 0. And we're paying close attention to the signs and making sure that we are following along. All right, so come back around here. There we go. All right, so that is it for lesson 4.1. Pretty simple, right? The biggest thing to remember here is whether we are graphing positive or negative integers, making sure we have the correct sign, and then determining what is 0. Okay, so if we're talking about elevation, right, sea level would be 0. Okay, if you're talking about withdrawing money from a bank account or depositing money within a bank account, 0 in that case would be nothing was deposited and nothing was withdrawn, so there was no change. So we need to understand what 0 represents in each of these situations. All right, so as always, please make sure to complete your homework on McGraw-Hill. Please let me know if you have any questions, and have a great day. Bye.